to the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Mats podcast. And today's guest for the podcast, look, man, we've been trying to do this for a while, and we almost had another issue this go around. And there's something out there not letting us record. Our guest for this episode is actually as you all know, I tend to communicate with most people through Instagram. And actually, we met through kind of a weird. I was following your account for a while, but there's something that happened with.
It was like McDojo Life, wasn't there? Something involved with Rob and like maybe a company, and we all kind of came together to. I think it was like Elite Sports or something. I don't want to like mention any names, and but I think that's what it was.
Rob took over. Rob was like, "Oh, y'all got static with them? Well, you know what? I was already building a case." So and then he connected us with you, and so as I'm doing this big intro and explanation, I want to welcome to the show Mr. Matt Wahlstrom, also known as Epic Roll BJJ. Welcome to the show, Matt. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for your patience in all this chaos. How are you?
My pleasure, brother. I'm great. It's so good to finally make it happen.
Good. Yeah, we were supposed to record sometime last year, and same circumstances, a power outage, and then that power outage took my internet out, and I think I did record 2 episodes with a couple people without the internet, and the quality was so bad. And I was like, I'm not doing that again. And then life just kind of took off. And I was like, shit, all right. And during that time, I think what was going on your end, there's a lot of big stuff going on with Epic Roll. And as I'm watching, I was like, oh, I wanted to talk with him about it so badly. But Matt, like kind of, I guess for us here on Off the Mats, kind of like, I guess, quickly, share with us and kind of catch us up what all took place. Was it last spring, I believe?
Yeah, it was with the partnership.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I years ago, this was actually before COVID. I was introduced to Zoe through my business partner for my fitness bottle, for the one bottle, and they were friends. They had known each other, and actually they co-own BC Rich Guitars, and there was some stuff there. So John had introduced me to Zoe, Zoltan Bathory, who was the founding member of the band Five Finger Death Punch. And so he had introduced me to him, and I knew he was a jiu-jitsu guy. So I had sent him some Epic Roll gear stuff for him to wear. And John hooked my wife and I up with him to go to one of their shows up in PA. So we went up there, and that was one of the first times like I met him, and it was really cool. He had us on the side stage and brought us up during the concert, and was just super kind and generous. And his wife, Heather Gracie, was also there. So I was able to meet her, and we had such a good time. And I remember when we left that event, I looked at my wife and I was like, man, Zoe is such a cool guy. Like, how awesome was that? Wouldn't that be awesome if he was my business partner for Epic Roll? And I just, put it out into the universe and said that. And we kind of both jokingly laughed about it. Like, yeah, right. And then flash forward 3 years later, they're my business partners for Epic Roll. So, it was basically, he had not only started to wear the gear, which he became then an immediate fan of, but then he kind of kept meeting people. This is what he had told me. He's like, I keep meeting people that know you and that are wearing Epic Roll and really like you and really support the brand. And he's like, I just think it's so weird that, we have this same mutual business partner who's like, this guy who you just wouldn't even know about if you didn't know him. And yet super connected. And we had just all this crossover in our sort of network and circle. And he was like, look, what do you think about partnering up on, Epic Roll and kind of taking this to the next level? Which, for me, I had been really in a flux of trying to figure out what I was going to do to take it and continue to grow the brand, because as one single person, it's like very hard to do, resources, financially, everything. And yet I had plenty of people offer to invest in Epic Roll and to want to buy in, but I didn't need just money. I didn't need just a money partner. I sort of needed somebody who had some other intangible values and skill sets that could be used to kind of elevate this, whether it was marketing, design. I mean, again, I was designing all of, every design that you see out there. I was designing all this stuff. I was doing every Instagram post, everything. And so it was just a lot on my shoulders. And then, come to find out, Zoe had an extensive background in marketing and design. He's actually really talented in that arena. And that's another thing that is a passion for him. So there was a lot of things that sort of just made sense. And within a very short period of time, we had negotiated everything and had the legal paperwork done, and him and Heather became, partners and owners of the brand. And since then, it's just been like an amazing ride, because we've traveled all over the country together. We've trained with, some of the top guys out there. We went to Austin and trained with all, Danaher and Marigali and, all these amazing people. Been out in LA with Eddie Bravo. And so that was really, really fun. And it sort of helped add a little, a lot more street cred, I guess, to the brand, and really put some financial resources in place that were not previously available. So we kind of came together with the collective goal of making Epic Roll the biggest jiu-jitsu brand on the planet. And that has been sort of our ongoing mission and kind of where we're projecting now.
Nice. When I first actually, I think, saw your products, it was through a couple other grapplers out in LA who was they were running a podcast. I believe it was the Jiu-Jitsu Happy Hour.
Okay,
and yeah. I think I followed you off of them, and then after that, everything else happened. But since then, like especially since the spring, I've just been seeing your posts. I've been seeing Epic Roll everywhere, and I'm like, dude, like that's any of us who's on social media with any kind of a name or anything, that's kind of where we look. We're like, dude, like that's the next step. Like you're saying, you're trying to figure out, how to take it to the next level. And there you have it, dude. That's awesome.
I didn't know, what I was doing. I mean, this was like just something that started by me making, gear for myself. I wanted to make comfortable gear that fit well with, good designs. And then, it sort of transcended from just becoming like, we didn't want to become a t-shirt design company where the success is all predicated on your next like wacky design or witty design or whatever it is. I think in the beginning, to grow the brand, I had to really design some like staple, pieces to put in the catalog to get people's interest, because just the name alone, if you were to put Epic Roll on just a black rash guard like we do now, people be like, what is this? What is it? So there's some level of just balance there with creating designs, but the idea being that we become the, quote unquote Nike of jiu-jitsu and the apparel side of it. So that's been our goal as of late. And we started making a lot of gear for a lot of companies, a lot of different academies across the country, and not only athletes and influencers and musicians, but also academies. And surprisingly, that became like a really big part of our business model, and has become that now, because it's everything we're doing is co-branded with Epic Roll, so it's fantastic branding for us. And that was sort of the approach. It was just really grow it grassroots. And that was one of the things that stood out to Zoe, is he was like, I'm really impressed with how much you've grown this and how many people and specific people are behind the brand with basically like a shoestring budget and just one dude, you know? And so I think his thought was with the right tools and resources and team that could just reach, you know, bigger and better heights. So that's kind of, you know, where we are at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, it shows, especially the hard work, because I think, you could have anyone where you can give them the resources, and sometimes, if the resources can be there, but if the hard work and the determination isn't there, where the resources go, it
Right.
doesn't go anywhere. So just seeing where you've taken it after, the fact, just goes to show it's like, look, you had a plan, an idea, and it's like I think that's where a lot of us fall into kind of that trap, like you said, with the t-shirt designs. It all starts with t-shirts, and sometimes you get stuck with t-shirts. And you're like, well, no, wait a minute, we can do more than t-shirts. And now you're like you said, the Nike of the jiu-jitsu world, where I opened up Instagram and someone new has on Epic Roll, and I'm like, nice. And I've got some of your mugs because I'm a mug collector. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, which a lot of a lot of designs are on your rash guards and shirts and stuff. So it's like, okay, well, that's next. First let me. And my wife, she's like, okay, enough with the mugs. like we don't have space.
I'm not allowed to
like,
collect mugs
but
either.
cool. Well, the funny thing is, I gave my wife a hard time about mugs when we had our old apartment. I was like, what are you doing with all these mugs? Like, you're not drinking from these things. Like, you get like 20 mugs. And now I've got like 40 mugs. So,
I collected shot glasses for like the big part of my young adult life, like everywhere I was going, but I would get like really cool ones. I mean, I got ones from like wooden ones from Japan and metal ones from Scotland and all these. So like I kept some, but like, I'd go to Virginia Beach and get a shot. My wife's just like, you're killing me with this shot glass thing. So I had to dispose of a bunch of them, and I was only allowed to keep like the really good ones. So I kind of halted. I was like, all right, no more shot glasses. That's fine.
I was in the shot glass game as well at one point. If I went to a state, I made it a point to always get a shot glass. And my buddy, he was in the Army, and he had spent time over in Kuwait. So he sent me a Harley Davidson shot glass from Kuwait. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And my wife was like, all right, enough with the shot glasses. Mm-hmm. This is getting out of hand. I was like, okay, I got to keep Michigan because that's where I'm from. I got to keep Delaware because that's where I moved to. I got to keep this one from Kuwait because my buddy sent me this. The rest of them, can go. And, but we have our things. We all have our things and compromises.
100%.
So looking at just everything that you've done up to this point and, where you've come from, did you ever even when starting jiu-jitsu or let's take it back, to Epic Roll, starting, making your shirts and everything, was it ever an ideal in your mind? Like you say, you start off by making gear for yourself. Did you ever think to yourself, you know what, this is going to be a big thing? Did you have that vision? Like Jim Carrey wrote $1 million check to himself and was like, I'll cash this on this date. Did you ever have that moment where you're like, this is going to be something special? Or was it just more like, all right, I'm just going to kind of keep it home base right now and we'll work as we work?
So I don't think I had the idea that it would be even as big as it is right now, or I would be in the position I am right now with the people that I'm involved in. I think that, was the last thing from my mind. But what I did know is that I come from a, sales and marketing and design background. And so I have somewhat of an eye for design. And, so I looked at the name and I looked at the logo and I was like, this is kind of cool. Like, it's not too masculine, not too feminine. It's kind of like middle of the ground. The word epic is synonymous with like everything cool and used all the time. and it just, you know, I came off of like rolling with one of my buddies and was like, oh, that was an epic roll. And then I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. And that was like kind of the inception of the idea of the name. But I was continuously motivated through these little milestones because I found out about drop shipping, which allowed me to start making t-shirts and without any kind of like real financial consequences, right? If the design didn't do well, it just sat there. It didn't cost me any more money. So I could, you know, that was a benefit. And as I started making t-shirts, then people were like, oh, do you make rash guards? Oh, do you make gis? Do you make shorts? Do you make this? And it's sort of just, I went, oh, okay. And I, you know, and again, funding this all myself, my full-time, you know, job was real estate and still is. You know, my wife and I have our real estate business, and so this was a side, you know, project that really was fun, but turned into a complete full-time second, you know, job. And now, I mean, it's so fulfilling, and I'm so grateful for even where we are, because it's just the beginning of our growth. But to see the people that were supporting me was huge, because it is hard to do. It's hard to create a brand, and it's hard to get people to get on board with that. And it's hard to not be a one-trick pony and not just be a flash in the pan, you know, like to create a brand, a long-term brand, and you know, and become part of the jiu-jitsu history and community, and really get yourself in there. I mean, you definitely have to have a lot of solid components working together. It's, you know, like I could only get my buddies to buy my stuff for so long if my gear was bad, if the designs weren't, you know, weren't good. But the one thing that I really believe is a huge part of how I ended up here is just from networking. It's from being a black belt in networking, you know, and building relationships, because I came to people very openly about this brand, and I was like, hey, so-and-so, you're awesome. I make this gear, would love to share it with you. You know, you don't need to post anything on Instagram. You don't need to pay me anything. You don't need to do anything like that. You just check it out. And if you like it, cool. And so right out of the gates, you know, I mean, I gave a lot of products away to people to really, you know, get it out there and for people to try it, because I understood that, you know, especially if you're using things like drop shipping, your pricing is not going to be the cheapest. You're not going to be the cheapest guy on the block. So with all that being said, I felt like going out, building relationships one at a time, you know, just sharing the brand with people ended up paying dividends, because then people came back and they were like, oh, I really like this. And, oh, this isn't some hard sell, and there's no requirements, and there's no whatever. And, you know, what was amazing that we talk about a lot is how many people wear our brand that we don't pay. Like, we don't really pay athletes, you know, sponsor podcasts, you know, the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. I've been working with him for a long time, and with Nick, and but in general, like, we don't do that. So the people that are wearing it, you know, it's easy to pay somebody to get them to wear your stuff, easier, I would say. But when people are genuinely wearing it because they like it, that's, you know, that's huge. So as I started getting more and more messages from people that were like, this is my favorite jiu-jitsu brand, and I'd see people making these orders, and it was so humbling, because I'm like, this is something that just, you know, I created and now is a part of the community in, you know, a big way, in my own way. You know, we're not the biggest company, you know, out there yet, but I see the impact it's made, and I've seen the positivity through that, and the relationships that I've been able to build, you know, through it. And so that's like been invaluable, you know, to me, and what's sort of continued to motivate me to keep pushing forward and to keep trying to, you know, grow this.
Yeah, it's my coach once said to me when you know, I had a few BJJ wiki shirts, and it was like, you know, bring them by the gym. You know, teammates will, you know, always be happy to support. And it's always interesting when you know, first make something or put something out there and you get that support. And it's like, oh my God, like, you know, it's like, you know, winning a UFC title, you know, once you become champion, you start getting better. You know, it's
Sure.
like you're already good, but it's like now you're champion. Now it's like you go up like, you know, 20 experience points. It's like you get that encouragement from your teammates or friends, and it's like, those points go up. Now it's like, oh, okay, and it comes back. So it's good to hear from someone personally, just the ideal that getting that support and how important it is, because there's so many different stories you're hearing. Whether it's accurate or not, I'm not sure. I'm not one to go and say, hey, I think that guy's lying over there, but they're like, I did it all on my own and I didn't have anyone support me. I didn't have anyone, with my back. I had to, just do this from the ground. It's like a lot of people do start from the ground. You started from the ground and here you are, but as you're acknowledging, you have that support, and that's so key. With the ideal of the support system being there in place, just from whether it be teammates or now other bigger names out there now. What's it like now in training at your gym, as you start moving up now? It's like, hey, there's Matt, this the Epic Roll guy, like, what is that like for you at the gym?
It's fun, man. I remember being out at ADCC, at the last ADCC, and I walked around and I saw like 6 different people just randomly wearing Epic Roll shirts. And I was like, I am on the other side of the country. Granted, I'm at a jiu-jitsu event, but it was just, seeing that, and I had people come up and they wanted to take photos. And I was just like, wow, this is very strange, because my identity has, Epic Roll has become like part of my identity, but that's because I built so many personal relationships with people, like growing this brand. Like, I think, there was some level of uniqueness to it for people to be able to talk to the guy who owned it and also was designing stuff and was also on the social media. It was like kind of direct access, to me. And I just like was a normal dude. And so people have been so cool and so supportive, and our school is, extremely supportive. We have people in there wearing Epic Roll all the time. And, I was under no delusion that this was going to be the last cool jiu-jitsu brand, and that there won't be other cool brands that come out, and everybody wants to have, especially how available, building things like this are, assuming you have, a good name, good marketing, good product, but the resources are way more available now than they were, say, 10 years ago. So this is a very interesting time for us to be at the, base of the mountain of what we're growing at this time and place with jiu-jitsu, because it's more popular than it's ever been. There's so much more out there. So it's ingrained in society a lot more than it used to be. And there's all these awesome resources to be able to grow a brand. But for me, it was like, I had to create cool stuff, but I also had to build those relationships. And I think people wanted to support me. They liked the brand for sure, but they also wanted to support me. And so, it's kind of a trip, because I remember, I think our first year of sales, which I kind of say 2018 was like the year, like our first year, but I think we did like $2,400 in sales, like for the year. You know what I mean? Just like, which at that point I was even like, oh, well, it's not a negative. So, whatever. Not knowing that I was kind of laying the groundwork for where we were going. And, now we'll have, $3,000 to $5,000 days. You know what I mean? Now we're doing well over 6 figures, and just at the beginning part, like I said, of where we're growing. So I think it's cool, man. It's such a fulfilling business to be in. And it requires so much work, and this notion that entrepreneurs or people that go, oh, everybody's against me and my back's against the wall, I got to do it all myself. There's some truth to that, because for a long time, nobody cares, right? Every Instagram post you make, everything, nobody cares. Nobody sees it. Nobody pays attention to it. But if you push past that and you keep going, because you have a higher purpose and you have a vision, and, whether that's in the beginning or something that develops and evolves over time. But if you stick with that, eventually people do start to care and do start to notice. And I had a very, I think, organic evolution from the inception of this to where we are now, to get us here. But in my opinion, that built so much of a stronger brand awareness and brand loyalty to people, that then when we started getting these amazing people involved and people who are now like friends of mine, it just added more, right? Like, you know how people are with marketing. Like, if a Kardashian goes on and is like, hey, this is the best makeup that you should buy, like, that's pretty much all they got to do, and then people are going to go out and buy that, right? Because they command that level of authority with their audience, and have that trust. And so I started having these amazing people pushing Epic Roll just on the friend side, just being supportive, and so other, that obviously helped gain some attention. And I can't really think of another brand that, like recent jiu-jitsu brand that started that had that level of social influence right out of the gates, and the amount, the people that we have. I mean, we have some of the, like, there's almost nobody in the industry that we can't get in touch with and that we don't have a connection to. You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty amazing. So I, for a long time, I went through this just feeling like I was by myself, but 100%, the only reason why we got here was because I didn't quit, and we had these amazing supporters, and customers that helped motivate me to keep going.
Of all the, I guess the bigger names right now that are, supporting the brand and everything, that are now friends, who's the most, like, who's the one right now that you're just like, you have to slap yourself every so often, like, holy shit, I'm friends with so and so.
Yeah. There's a few, but I will say that the person that I nerd out with almost the most, and it's just because of how old I am and the time I grew up in the music, but Michael Kroger from Nickleback is the one, he's one of my really good friends, and it blows my mind because this guy, like, and this band, love them or hate them, dude, I mean, they were one of the biggest rock bands in the universe. I grew up like listening to them, and when you put on Spotify and you go to Nickelback, my son's girlfriend, 18 years old, not even from that generation, we were playing it at the house, and it was just like 10 songs in a row, and she's like, oh, I know that song, and I was like, of course you do, because it's Nickelback, that's why. So Michael Kroger is definitely one of those. Mike Beltran, like, we talk weekly all the time. In fact, he just called me earlier, and is we're going to be doing and making the gear for his school as well. A lot of the Epic Roll tribe, making stuff for Eddie Bravo. We did the Death Punch gis. We're doing custom stuff with everybody. We're getting ready to do a gi with Jeff Glover. That's another one who's, a great friend that I'm just like, whoa, it's Jeff Glover. It's like, so yeah, man, I'm, and then with Heather Gracie being in the picture, that was like a whole nother level, because then we had Uncle Henzo and then we had Hadra Gracie, and we had, like, the love and support of all the Gracies. And so for me, it doesn't even compute and make sense in my head. Like, I get these phone calls and I talk to these people, and I'm like, wow, like, these people are genuinely my friends. But we built relationships not through me being like a fanboy or anything like that. It was like genuinely because these folks operate at such a higher level in general that most of them don't have time for any bullshit. Like, they don't have time for, I mean, they'll kind of weed out the phonies and, people right out of the gates, and they don't open themselves up to that level of friendship unless they really trust you. And these relationships were just all built on just friendship and trust, and just genuinely wanting to help each other. And so obviously these were things that had to be cultivated. They didn't just, happen overnight. But now, like, looking back, I mean, I can sit there and I can call some really amazing people ask for advice or to throw ideas around or to get support on certain things or whatever. And again, I find that to be an invaluable asset and resource. And so I try to also do what I can to keep those relationships, as a high priority, and do everything I can to help. It's kind of like the more you go out there to try to solve people's problems and help them, the more you'll, universally end up receiving, back. Like you just go at business with a mindset of solving problems and giving, to people. And that, I think, in a world of terrible, shrewd businesses and business practices, stands out as something very sort of unique and makes people feel a lot more comfortable, to end up working with you. So
It's like you said, it's kind of a, give and take. So many people take, but to build those relationships and that trust, there has to be, from your end, showing like, hey, I'm willing to help where I can, how I can, what you need from me, and they give it right back. So that's good. And kind of to go back to the Nickleback thing real quick. It's funny because you and I, we're actually around the same age. We're the same bracket there.
Yeah.
And growing up, listening to a lot of Nickleback, those early 2000s. It's funny now because I always feel like as soon as they start trying to tear you down and making fun of you, you made it. Because, 5-6 years ago, just was hearing like things about Nickleback and like, oh God, Nickleback. It was like, what? Like, are you kidding? Like, I'm flipping through my phone. It was like, it can't, it's countless numbers of, Nickleback songs. Just if I put it on mix or shuffle,
hit, bro.
Yes.
I mean, it's incredible. Like, and their concert, my son, this is how lucky my youngest son is. It was his first concert he ever went to. Michael is in town here. They're playing at this event. So he's like, come up, meet us around back. So we literally drive around, back by the tour bus. We get escorted from my car straight to Michael's tour bus, where he has had like drinks and everything, and literally just him and my family like sitting there. So my youngest son, Jed, his first musical experience was like the most epic VIP backstage tour, watch from side stage, Nickleback experience ever. And while, that probably wasn't like him going to some Kanye concert or something like that, but that's what he got to be exposed to. And it was, my wife and I still talk about it. That's like our favorite concert we ever went to. I mean, they rip, dude. They're so good in concert. And Michael's just one of the nicest, like genuinely nicest dudes. Anybody who meets Michael, they say the exact same thing. Like, you could never find anybody to say anything bad about him. He's just literally such an amazing guy. And they shot a documentary, and they're still negotiating with who's going to put it out, whether it goes like Amazon Prime or Netflix or whatever. But he sent me the documentary with this code so I could go in and watch it. And I was like, man, that it was amazing. And it just reminded me again of like how huge they are. Dude, their shows sell out, people rock out. And Chad said something in the documentary where he's like, at this point in my life, like, I'm not making music for non-Nickleback fans. He's like, the people that are at the shows are Nickleback fans, and they're there because they want to be there. And everybody had a blast, and it was just, it was phenomenal. So yeah, so, I mean, and the funny part is when we did the photo shoot out in LA, when we did this photo shoot where we had Michael and,
nice.
and Mike Beltran and Bobby and everybody here, BMAC, he was like the one that was like, he kept coming up to me going, "Oh, Matt, thanks so much for letting me be a part of this." And and I was like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, yeah, no, you're a part of it. Like, you're good. Like, thank you, So, yeah, it's a trip, man. It's a trip.
Yeah. It's crazy when they're like, thank you to you. It's like,
Yeah.
when you're trying not to fanboy out, it's like, yeah, no, thank you. That's got to be surreal
Oh,
just to have that moment.
100%, 100%. And yeah, I
Uh,
mean, these people are, and I have two of the best business partners. And I mean, that's how, having Heather is why Dana White, was wearing Epic Roll. I mean, that's another one where I couldn't even really compute how that,
even when I saw that, there was just something going through my head too, like trying to, it wasn't clicking. It was like, because I mean, for all of us in this community, jiu-jitsu community, which is the MMA community, it's like, so to see Dana White wearing, it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like,
It was a
wait,
big holy shit moment for sure.
I know that brand. I know that guy. Wait, I know those things. So
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
cool.
It was really cool. And Zoe and I were on his tour bus with the band on the way to their first show, or one of their last shows. It was at this festival, however many months ago it was. And we were there on the bus together, and our phones start blowing up, like, oh, Dana White, Dana White. And so it was cool to be together when that happened, because that was just such a sort of huge moment as well.
So entrepreneur is an interesting word. I always, again, being on social media as much as I am, I see a lot of people label themselves as entrepreneurs. I have friends that label themselves as entrepreneurs. As I look at what you've done, and you mention yourself as an entrepreneur, what, in your words, does entrepreneur mean?
So I don't say that it means that you have to be the owner of a company to be an entrepreneur, but in my mind, there's a heavy association to that, whether you're part of a team that started a company or you created or developed something. But um, even just working for yourself, I mean, there's so many different levels of being an entrepreneur, but for me, it was like I came from this corporate background and had been at pretty high levels of that corporate background, and then experience what it was like when a big corporate company says, hey, we're going to sell because we're going to make millions of dollars and goodbye. And you've now spent all your time, money, and effort putting it into something that you don't own. So to me, being an entrepreneur was being somebody that had ownership in the companies and in the brands and things that I was building, because I thought to myself, if you are committed to not failing, then you don't have to worry about job security. But that was a concept that I think a lot of people have a hard time grasping, or, even we had family members that would look at stuff I was doing and it was like, oh, well, you should just stay with this company and be safe and do this and do that. And I'm like, but I don't own it. So case in point, a company I worked for and made a lot of money for one day was like, by the way, we're selling for $42 million to this other company. And so we are no longer in need of your services or any of these other management and da, 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 da. And, and as a business owner, I get it. Like, you can't fault somebody for growing something and then wanting to sell it at whatever time. It's their right to be able to do so. So you either are building your own future and your own company, or you're going to help somebody else build theirs. And that's fine, because it's certainly not for everybody. I mean, the amount of failure, the amount of disappointment, the amount of hardship and struggles and obstacles has way superseded, the wins on this journey. But at the end of the day, I decided to invest in myself, and I could never see going back another way, because once you work for yourself and you support yourself and you make money, you've now proven your theory right. Like, you can do it. Now it's just about, the long game. Like, can I sustain this? Can I have a balance? Like, one of the things people I think struggle with in entrepreneurship is this balance of like health, wealth, love, and happiness. There's these components that you sort of need to have, I think, in my mind, to live a really fulfilled life. because I've had extremes where I've experienced working for a company, making a lot of money, but having no work and life balance. So I don't see my wife, I don't see my kids, I'm on the road all the time. And what fun is that? That's not the type of life. I think what I did is I got very clear in this vision of what I wanted my days to look like. So, I could very detailed, in a very detailed manner, explain from when I get up to when I go to bed how I want my life to look. So then once you do that and you're very clear on that, you can reverse engineer how to get there, right? And that's going to come with adjustments along the way, but you could start to go, okay, so this, I want my freedom to do this, this, and this. I want, to be able to provide this, and this. I want to go on X number of vacations. I want to, whatever that is for you. But once you get very clear on that, it's a lot easier to work backwards and start to take the steps to get there, right? Is if it's surprising how many people, if you ask them, like, what do you want your day to look like? What if you could do anything, what would that be? A lot of people actually don't know, they just think, I just want money, right? I just want money. I just want to do, and that is such a cannibalizing concept to just, focus all on money. I mean, Epic, that it was the last thing on my mind was that, oh, this is going to support my family one day or whatever. No, it's starts with you and your passion and like what you can, what you want to give your time and energy to, because we work so many hours in our life and spend so much time in that space, that wouldn't that be brilliant if we could do something that made you feel fulfilled as a human being, that even though it's not easy every single day, but that the work you're doing is satisfying and fulfilling you as a human. That's a huge gift, so for me, I was able to position myself with businesses that I'm passionate about. I get to work with amazing people, doing, and yeah, it's a big struggle and it's a lot of hard work. But I kind of feel like, there was a quote, I think Jim Carrey said, that his dad told him, which was like, I'm paraphrasing, but like, you could fail at the things that you hate too, so you might as well try to do the things that you love. And yeah, so that's kind of what I did. And that's the very long-winded explanation of what I think of entrepreneurship.
I don't know. That was an amazing answer, dude. And just as you're going through that, I'm just thinking, it's like, that's got to be, a little nerve-wracking, a little scary, to a degree. At least, I'm thinking to myself, it's like, if I'm like branching out, but like you said, it's like you didn't come into this thinking, this is going to support my family one day, and I think that's so important because, I have friends who, I've discussed early on before I started a podcast, they're doing podcasts and, immediately out the gate, they're like, look, our objective is to make a bunch of money. We don't have to work anymore. I was like, why don't you go in and your objective is to have fun and enjoy it. And then maybe the money comes with that, down the line. I feel like, and not for everyone, but I feel like if you go in immediately thinking I'm all about the money, you've created something that's going to be problematic if you don't make the money that you expect to make right away. Now right. It's a failure in your own mind versus I'm here to have fun and I'm here to enjoy my time, or I'm passionate about this thing. And then you get out there and it's like, you still have that passion, money or no, that passion is always there, whether it be jiu-jitsu, whether it be action figures in my basement all over the place, whether it be, talking to people, however it goes. But, your long-winded answer, it's super inspiring. Just listening to it was like, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, this is the second time I kind of started my eyes started kind of getting misty a little bit. I was like, God damn, that is a beautiful answer. But thank you for sharing that though.
Yeah, no, I mean, my goal, my long-term goal is to inspire other entrepreneurs and share my stories and my successes and failures with people to encourage them to go out and take risks and to try to do big things, because that I look back at a lot of different people that inspired me along the way and listen to all these stories of people that are crazy successful, but went through bankruptcies and went through tons of failures and went through hardship. And it was just, I don't know anybody who's super successful, to be honest, who didn't struggle like immensely to get there. And that's the road that you have to be able to accept through this. It's like, and that's where passion fills and bridges those gaps of disappointment and not feeling motivated and things like that. It's like, well, that's the point, because if you're doing this work, it's going to be whatever your business is. If you're growing a business, if you're trying to grow something yourself, it's just going to take time and it's going to take effort, and it's a grind. So to hate what you're doing, but doing it for yourself, it's not the answer. You know what I mean? And I think that's why I say it's so important for people to get very clear on what they want their life to look like, because it's not to say that there are people, like there are Amazon people that are selling things on Amazon that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And they're selling coat hangers and widgets and things like that. So, but even with that, there's a grind to understand that model, to understand marketing and what products you have to sell, and all there's a bunch of, it's like when you look at influencers or you look at YouTubers, or making content is not easy, and making good, compelling content is even harder. So while everybody's got a camera in their hand, like 1% of the population knows how to monetize that and do something with it. So it's not easy. And that's where, whatever industry you're in, my advice to anybody who's trying to do that is like, become an expert at your business, learn as much as you can, invest in yourself. Like your skills are directly related to your income, so if you're a valuable person with skills that other people don't have, you'll be paid more money for that. If you can flip a burger like 10,000 other people can flip a burger, your financial gain is going to coincide with that, right? So you have to just figure out what it is that you want your life to look like, how much you're willing to invest in yourself and developing your skills. And again, that cliche of like, it's all who like there's just so much value in networking and being around the right people, surrounding yourselves. Like my partners are multimillionaires with Ferraris and beautiful houses and all this stuff. Like, cool, man, show me the way. Like, that's where I want to be. Not because it's just I'm a materialistic person, but because like I'm of the idea that I don't let society convince me that wanting an upscale life with nice things is a bad thing. Like you can very easily go down that road where people are like, I don't want this, I don't want that, I just want enough to get by and whatever. And that's fine. But I really feel like that's a societal influence, whether it's coming from your parents or, friends, or you just giving yourself a break on the not doing the hard work that it takes to get there, right? I don't need this, I don't need that. We're on this earth for a very short period of time. Like, yeah, I want to go and travel the world, and I want to take care of my family, and I don't want to have to think if I want to go on a vacation. I want to be able to, like have nice cars, have a nice house, like, so I'm working towards those goals, and I've positioned myself around people who are living the lives and the lifestyles, and not just materialistic, like good people, good people who know so much about business and have been down their own roads and mistakes that have given a tremendous amount of information to me to help me avoid these mistakes. So for me, I want to grow these brands to be some of the biggest around, so that I'm afforded the opportunity to be able to share my story and hardships and things with people, to inspire them, because I think that's like the most fulfilling thing you could do. Like money's great, everything's great, but to make an impact on society, to make an impact on people, and to be able to help people and be a resource for them to push through those times, like that was integral to me and my success. So I want to be able to, pay that back and do the same thing. So it's really like a constant reminder to myself of, no, you have a responsibility because you were lucky enough to be in this position. Like you have an opportunity to have an influence on people through your products and your brands. And so I take that seriously. And that again motivates me to kind of keep growing and growing, because, let's be honest, like if somebody's sitting there and they're not better off financially than you are, you might not listen to what they have to say, right? So there's a certain level of success that you don't have to be Grant Cardone, but you got to get up there so you can have people's attention. So I'm very aware of that. And that, I think, is ultimately my, sort of my goal.
Absolutely. I think, we need, what you're offering there, inspiration. I think a lot of people need inspiration, positive inspiration specifically. It's like you can get inspired by people who are saying a lot of things that are, I don't want to say nonsense, but it's like, that doesn't sound very, like, I mean, but they're there, but that doesn't sound very kind. Whereas like the things that you're saying, it's inspiring. And also, I can say from my own personal experience, and then also here in this, conversation, you're just a good dude. I mean, again, going back to, how we were introduced through social media, and then you invited me out to, where you train at. I went out there. I was like, okay, cool. Didn't know you. I don't even think I knew what you looked like. It was like, okay, sure, cool. I'll go out here. I'll drive, 90 minutes and get out there. And, I got the opportunity to roll with you. You're still a brown belt at that time.
Yeah.
Now you're black belt here. Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
But I always say you can tell a lot, about a person, by how they roll. And you were super, super cool. You weren't like trying to bull rush me. No one at the gym was actually.
Yeah.
Everyone out there is extremely polite. And I think, as your community, as the influences around you in all walks of life, that's how you all are. I mean, it's like I roll with your teammates out there, super nice people, roll with you, super nice, listen to you here, super inspiring, super nice. And, that all carries over, it all has weight. And I can't, tell you how much, we in the jiu-jitsu community especially appreciate you. So thank you
That's
for all
awesome,
of that,
man.
dude.
I mean, hey, that's amazing to have to have any level of that, from what I've created come across is flattering and very, gratifying. And yeah, I think there's a difference between successful people and like who are like charlatans and who are phony and will just use and backstab you. And even though that exists in probably all industries in some way, jiu-jitsu has there's this deep knit brotherhood like that's already existing there. So then when you get people that, you take a couple of black belts who have all been through jiu-jitsu long enough to get their black belt, there's an immediate level of respect and going, oh wow, okay, you put in your time, like that's awesome. And being good people, like we wouldn't be able to exist with like a bad apple in the group. Like you wouldn't stick around, you wouldn't survive, you'd get, we would move away from that because everything we're trying to do is coming from a place of positivity and friendship and support and love and passion. And so that's the characteristics and that's the elements that we bring into the business through ourselves and through each other. And it's like, it's incredible what you can accomplish when you have that kind of support, and when you come at it from that place, rather than just trying to find your ladder up, by using people to get to the next step. And that happens a lot, and there's usually, again, every successful person has stories about folks they know in the past who have tried to do that and been snakes in the grass. But we have such a really good group of people, that again, not to repeat it, but it's a huge blessing to have the people I do surrounding me to continue to grow this and help it. And that's why I'm so confident that we'll have, grown the biggest jiu-jitsu brand on the planet. Like that's the way it's going to be. And so that's what we're going to do.
Absolutely. I mean, you're moving in that direction, and, like I said, everywhere I look, it's like, oh, okay, Epic Roll. I know that brand. I recognize that brand. Seeing all the, everything, that you've done and where you've come from, you know, and especially in the jiu-jitsu community, you know, you got to black belt, you know, that's not something that's given, that's earned, you know, that takes hard work, talent, skill, all of it. But I want to know, what are you not good at?
Hmm. In life, just in general, or in jiu-jitsu?
In general, in
Lots of
general.
stuff in jiu-jitsu I'm probably not good at. I would say that I have a hard time delegating, um, because because I look at the fact that the reason that I was able to, I think, start Epic Roll and grow it came from me utilizing a bunch of skills that I picked up along the way. That's why I'm so big on, like, you know, skill building and like, how valuable are you? What do you bring to the table? Because you never know what opportunities you'll find yourself in. And if you're a resourceful person who's a quick learner and, you know, can really, you know, work hard, there might be things and paths that you'll take that you didn't even know were there. So I've had a hard time delegating because I create designs, you know, and so to just hand that off to somebody would be really tough. To not deal with every customer, you know, directly and trust that somebody else is speaking to them in the same way that I would. Like, it's the difference of, I could respond to somebody and just say, here's the answer, or I could respond and be like, hey, I hope you have an amazing day too. Thank you so much for your support. And those two extra sentences completely change the way that a text message or a message, you know, would be conveyed to somebody. So that's, I think, a part of growing a company. And I think that's also one of the big challenges, is like the culture you create and the checks and balances, the systems, and really just requires a lot of thought and effort, and diligence to kind of grow it that way. Because I'm very aware that as one person, you know, doing physical work or whatever, eventually this has to change, right? Eventually, like, we're bringing on sales reps now, and we're doing, you know, certain things that are starting to evolve the company. But that's always something I've struggled with, you know, just being able to go, here, let me get some help with this, instead of let me just take it on myself. Let me just do it all, because I'll do it right. You know, I'll do it this way and my way. So I definitely have struggled with that. And that's something that, you know, it's, you have to be real with yourself about what you're good at and what you're bad at, and what you need to work on. And that's something that stands out to me kind of regularly.
I get that. With one of our other podcasts, my co-host was like, hey, you know, one of my coworkers, she wants to run our Instagram. And I was like, on one note, I was like, yeah, I mean, that's one less thing we have to do with all the other things that we're doing. But then the other thing about it, though, is I don't know that she's going to be able to capture, you know, our sense of humor, our personalities in the posts that we put out there on that specific Instagram accounts.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're a couple silly guys, and we find silly content to repost. It's like, I don't know. I think she's gonna take it one direction, and we could explain like what we like, but you know, it's still, you know, we have, you know, we know what we're looking for. And I get what you're saying there, because it's like, you know what you're looking for, you know that, look, this attention to detail has to be paid. And even if, when it comes down even to the bottom line, just how you greet somebody or how you send them off, all those little details matter. So I get what you're saying, my friend.
Yeah, man, it's tough. And I felt very connected to this brand from the beginning. Obviously, you know, I spent,
Mhm.
one of the hard things was I would always, for the longest time, for years, I would, anything that I shipped out from here, you know, because obviously t-shirts and certain things are made on demand and go directly to the customer. But our gis, no gi stuff, shorts, things like that, I would send out personal thank you cards in all the packages that I'm sending out to people. So that was fine for a while. But then when you're going in every 2 days, you're 20, 30 orders, handwriting all of that. And we have, it's such a beautiful thing, but we have like a very high return customer rate. So this might be somebody's seventh purchase, and I can't write them the same card every single time and just like, hey, you already said thanks and welcome to the family or whatever. So now I'm writing this like, wow, thank you for the continued support, and I hope you're doing well, and this, and I it was such a lot of extra work, but I kept getting messages on Instagram and emails from people that were like, hey, that, like, I love the product, everything's great, but I really appreciated the letter you wrote, right? And as we got bigger and bigger and bigger, it became very clear that I was going to have to do one of two things. I was either going to have to find out another thing that I can do to replace these handwritten letters, or I was going to have to get one of those systems where it handwrites your letters and it looks like it's handwritten, but it's not. And I personally was against that idea because I just feel like it's like I'm not fooling you. You know what I mean? Like when you get a letter from somebody, it looks like it was written, and the sign, you're like, what are we doing here? Like this, are you trying to convince me that you actually wrote this? You did. It seemed like to me that was like disingenuous and just not the way I wanted to go. So that's why it took a while to actually figure out, what we could make and put in the packages that would sort of accomplish the same thing of thanking the person, maybe showing some of the people that are involved in the brand, giving a discount, having an ability to leave a review, A, B, and C. But that was something that it was hard to transition from, and now has saved me so much time and been amazing. But it was also kind of sad because I liked having that personal connection, but you can't. I mean, it's impossible. I would have to have somebody full-time just sitting there writing letters. And again, it doesn't make sense to just keep writing the same thing over and over. So this sort of became a thing. And that's just business evolving and having to make those decisions, the best ones that you think possible that are still adding value and not taking away from the customer experience, but who knows, man? I don't know. I wasn't told whether this is the right or wrong way. It's just, you just try to use your best guess and do the best that you can.
Hey, I mean, for what it's worth, I mean, it's the right way, I say, in the sense of, just again, being genuine and letting people know you care, because there's so many companies now that, companies are just like, mass produce anything. Right. Like I said, I collect action figures, and I received one in the mail because the boxes are now closed where you can't see it. Used to be the plastic casing, you can see what you're getting. Now you can't see anything. So I open up the box. I'm excited. I'm like, yes, got the training team X-Men. I got Storm. I got Bishop or Forge. I got Banshee. I'm excited, and I open up the box, and Storm didn't have a head.
Oh,
and I'm trying to find out, hey, who can I contact to get this character replaced? And it's all these ladders and hoops I gotta climb and jump through. And finally I just went to eBay, and for some weird reason somebody had the head for that character for sale, which is disturbing in its own.
That might have been your head. That might have been your head,
That's what my wife said. She was like, maybe that person got an extra one, and that was one that you're supposed to get. And I was like, possibly. But to be fair, Hasbro did send me a completely different figure, a highly sought after figure. So I will say I appreciate that from them. But there was still this weird disconnect where I just felt like, this is just a company, and they're like, look, man, just send them something and shut them the hell up. And it's like, okay. But that personal touch
removed from their experience, their customer experience. They get detached from that, and it's like, dude, you go through this process and see how frustrating it is, and so that's a tough thing to kind of always keep in the back of your mind. And that's always something I was aware of. Like, you want to grow, right? But like, make sure that you're staying connected to the customer experience and all of that, because that was such a big part of, I think, getting to this point, that it's definitely going to be a part of taking us to, the next level.
Absolutely. The human connection is highly, highly overlooked, I think, these days. So thank you for keeping that, my friend.
Trying.
All right. Matt, I'm glad we were able to finally get this conversation together.
Absolutely, man.
This has been amazing. I definitely want to have you back on and just shoot the shit. Let's have a blast with it. Let's party. But before we wrap up here, are there any shout outs or mentions that you like to drop for us before we get out of here?
Well, just want to thank everybody who has supported our brand to help us get to this point. We have some really exciting things coming up. Where our focus for 2024 is really giving back to jiu-jitsu athletes and trying to support this idea that there's people out there, that are spending money to go out and compete all the time, and usually just for little rinkety-dink medals and their own personal, journey and goals. And so we're really we have some really cool athlete-based programs that we're going to be launching this year that are going to give these, grapplers an opportunity to make money through supporting our brand and competing in Epic Roll gear. And it's going to be a bit of a disruptor, I think, for the industry, because we're fortunate to have some resources to put behind some of these programs that a lot of people might not be able to do. And it's going to be very exciting. So I'm really looking forward to that, to us continuing to grow. And shout out to my two business partners, Zoltan, Bathory, and Heather Gracie. Love them to death, and so appreciative of what we're building together. And let's go.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I'm looking forward to what you all are going to be doing in this upcoming calendar year. It's actually, this is the first recorded episode, I think, of 20. Nope, second one. Never mind. Drats.
I'll take number two.
I thought I had us. I think last week was the first one. I just remembered. I try to stack episodes and then just start like dilling them out. And I was like, wait a minute, am I at the end of that stack? I'm starting a new one. But I'm looking forward to 2024 and what you all have to offer to the jiu-jitsu world and the community. So thank you for that.
Thank you, brother, for having me on. Appreciate it. And we're not that far away, so come train anytime, and we'll definitely hop on another podcast soon. I'll bring Zoe on next time. We'll get us all on here.
Excellent. Actually, I had been thinking, it's like, I do need to get back out there and train. I had such a good time before, and it's been a while. I think when I came out there before, I was really, really grinding. I was in the mix, and now I've kind of, I'm training less, but it's like, you know what? Let me go out there, get a shock to the system. And just play around. So we'll definitely get together back out there and train.
Sounds good, buddy.
And as always, to everybody listening, thank you. We appreciate you. We appreciate all the supports, and we love you. If y'all have any questions, concerns, criticisms, always feel free to reach out. You can find me at bjj.wiki on Instagram or Off the Mats Podcast on Instagram also. If you want to be a guest on the show, reach out, let me know. If you have any suggestions, shoot them my way. I'm always open to hearing what you all have to say, because ultimately I'm just doing this. I just turn on the microphone and we record. So if you're listening, you're like, hey man, you could probably do this better or that better, please let me know, because I'm not going to get better if you don't tell me. So, but if you don't tell me, I assume I'm the best. I want to give a big shout out to my friends over at Nerd Rage Radio: Bobby, Chris, Joe, Marilyn, Phil, Ricky, Ticky, Raul, Chucky O, the Prince of Wakanda, Evan, everyone over there, part of that team. Thank you. I love you guys. If it weren't for Nerd Rage Radio, we wouldn't be doing podcasts. So, I definitely appreciate my friends over there. And February is coming up, so I'll be back on there soon. Also want to give a shout out to my other podcast, So You Like Horror. If you're into scary movies, go check it out. This year our theme is going to be cursed films, so any of those films that has some suspect stuff going on behind the scenes, mysterious deaths going on, just wacky stuff, we're going to be covering that this year. So be sure to check it out. We just finished up the Rosemary's Baby episode, so that'll be coming out this coming Friday. So go check that out. I had a good time recording with my wife about that. So appreciate your ears. And last but not least, I want to give another shout out here to our guest, Mr. Epic Roll BJJ himself, Matt Wahlstrom. Thank you for this, and I appreciate your time and also your patience again. Like I was scared we weren't going to get this. I thought we are going to have to use the phone and it was going to sound horrible, but here we are,
did it.
and this is awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you and everybody else. We love you. You guys keep listening, and we're going to definitely keep making these shows. Thank you, everybody, and bye.
They with it. Now let me sing a song.